Stop picking on Gen Z, man. They got problems like any other generation. I remember not too long ago, the target was millennials. I'm part of the millennial generation. And they were saying millennials are spoiled brats and they are so dependent on technology. Sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it? That's what they're doing with Gen Z now. The recent trend that people are making fun of with Gen Z is that they are apparently into adult pacifiers. Now, a lot of people would say that's weird. Well, I would point people back to the 90s. So really, Gen Z is doing something that isn't really new. It's happened before. As I've noticed, Gen Z is into a lot of 90s stuff, or early 2000s stuff, or things that they never experienced, they were never a part of. But now, they get to be a part of it. They're getting into vintage technology, like stuff from the 80s, stuff from the 90s. They're getting to all kinds of vintage stuff. Stuff that I would have grown up being born in the 90s and people that were born in the 80s grew up with. Where someone like me had kind of the best of both worlds. We grew up in the 90s where a lot of the internet technology was just starting to flourish and didn't really go into full swing until like the early 2000s. So we had our hands and feet in both worlds. Boomers, they like to make fun of the Gen Z and the millennials and all the problems that they have, yet some of them were involved in the creation of the problems we have today. Who are behind the products we use for our computers today? Steve Jobs and Bill Gates are both boomers. And Tom from MySpace, that would have been the first social media I used, he's actually Gen X. But Facebook is owned by Mark, who is a millennial. Now I could keep going and naming examples of all these people and what generation they're from. The point I'm making here is that Gen Z inherited the problems millennials, Gen X, and boomers created. Every generation has some issue that the other generation before it is complaining about. This is nothing new. This keeps happening. This has been happening since humans have existed and generations were made. People have also always complained about the new technologies. People were complaining about movie theaters when movie theaters were invented. People were complaining about planes when planes were invented. All kinds of things that people have complained about, of the new generation or the new technology or whatever. People have been doing this for ages. But I'm here to really defend Gen Z. Yes, Gen Z has problems. So did millennials. So did other generations. But Gen Z has it a little worse because Gen Z really didn't have much of a school life. They were growing up in a time of chaos. COVID. We kind of forget that COVID was a big part of their school and them growing up. And that caused them a lot of stress. And yeah, some of them, just like some millennials, were spoiled brats. Just like some boomers can be spoiled brats. Just like some Gen X can be spoiled brats. We're not perfect. None of us are. And we need to stop thinking we are. There was articles talking about Gen Z carrying stuffed animals around and how that's so juvenile and this and that. What do you want? Do you want kids to get into drugs and get into bad stuff? If the worst thing that Gen Z is into is pacifiers and stuffed animals, I think they're going to be okay. As long as the things that they're into isn't harming others or harming themselves or stunting their growth entirely or taking away from their responsibilities. That having a little odd interest here and there isn't a big freaking deal. And people are also complaining about people being into Happy Meals, this nostalgic adult Happy Meals, and people are like, people need to grow up. It's like, do you want people to actually live life and enjoy things? Or is being an adult just being constantly miserable, 24/7, never enjoying anything? If that's what being an adult is, then count me out. Because, I'm sorry, being serious about everything, constantly, 24/7, to the point that you can't ever laugh, ever have fun, ever have joy, is not an adult. You're just a person deep down inside that has issues, and you're just playing grown up. There's no real manual to being grown up. The more you live, the more you realize how much you don't know, and how much you have left to learn. You're always going to be learning. The generations before us claim that they had it figured out, but they never did. They were just as lost as we are. Yeah, there's good stuff, but you're only focusing on the good stuff. There was bad stuff too. Every generation has some bad stuff, some good stuff. That's just how it goes. I was a millennial, so I remember September 11th. It's one of the worst things that happened in my generation. And Gen Z, they have COVID. They have a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress caused by the internet. And yeah, does Gen Z need to be on the internet 24/7? No. But I would argue no one needs to be on the internet 24/7. Because the same problems that Gen Z is facing are the same problems that now older generations are facing. Not all older generations are off the internet. Yeah, some don't like the internet, some don't want to bother with the internet. Some are on it too. The internet has kind of consumed our lives. And I know older generations are just going to say, suck it up and deal with it. But the problem is, sucking up and dealing with it doesn't always work. It doesn't fully help people. People just max the problems. Yeah, I'm a Christian. I find my hope in Jesus. But finding your hope in Jesus doesn't mean that every day is perfect. I know I have a hard time coping with the world that I live in. There's always going to be suffering. There's always going to be pain. And that's not going to change while we live on this earth. No matter how much we try to escape it, how much we try to ignore the reality of how life works. Ignoring death, ignoring disease, ignoring suffering of any kind. We're just fooling ourselves doing that. And I want to make it clear, as a Christian, I'm not talking about indulging in sinful things. I'm really just talking about weird, quirky things like these things. You know, weird, quirky things that aren't necessarily bad. Sure, there might be arguments that Gen Z using pacifiers might mess with their mouth or something, give them an overbite. Well, there's also orthodontic ones designed so that problem doesn't happen. And they use pacifiers for a number of different things like speech therapy, snoring, helping with people that bite constantly, like clench their jaw. So it may be weird to some people, but there's applications for these things. And I'm not necessarily advocating to use these things. I'm just saying that I don't find it really much of a big deal that Gen Z's into it. I really don't. Some people have been dealt with horrible family structures, abuse, a lot of things in this world that are just messed up. Instead of understanding people and why they do things, we just laugh at them. We just think they're weirdos. Today, that's all people do. Even with politics, it's like, let's make fun of the liberals, let's make fun of the right, let's make fun of the Gen Z, and Gen Z, let's make fun of the boomers, let's just keep making fun of people, and never actually trying to connect and understand. No, we're just going to keep making fun because we humans can't accept the fact we all have problems. And just picking it up from our bootstraps is not always the solution. Just walk it off. Sometimes you need to go to therapy. Sometimes you need help. And that is fine to admit. Instead of ignoring the problems, we need to face the problems. There's some situations where maybe Gen Z shouldn't be indulging in these things, like at a job interview or in certain areas where they have to be professional. I get that. These habits, these little trends should just be private. What is the problem with them wanting to watch cartoons, wanting to have stuffed animals, wanting to use pacifiers or be into old technology and play video games or whatever fun things they want to do? As long as they're able to function in life, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. I think we're too hard on other generations. Sometimes I look at Gen Z and I'm like, yeah, they're into things that I don't get, but I don't hate them for it. I'm sure there are things that people look at me as a millennial and be like, I don't get that. Yeah, it's odd. It's weird. But picking on them, I don't think is the solution. Try to understand them. Try to get where they are. They might not even know why they are where they are. Maybe they don't even have the emotions to describe what they're going through, but they just need someone to care. Instead of putting them down while they're down, how about being a shoulder that they can cry on? Gen Z, some of them are teenagers right now. Some of them are getting into their 20s. Being a teenager was a very confusing time for me. And it's a confusing time for a lot of kids. And a lot of things that are being pushed in this world, a lot of ideologies and a lot of things that haven't really helped in the past several years, have made it even a lot more confusing for Gen Z. And Gen Z is stressed, frustrated, doesn't know what to do with their life, and probably thinking that they're never going to get ahead. They probably think the odds have been stacked against them, and the chances for them to be successful in this world is very slim. Just like the millennials felt. Next time you see someone younger than you struggling with life and not able to cope, how about you show some compassion instead of using them as a punching bag? Yes, there's a lot of weird things that people are into, a lot of identities that people are promoting nowadays, and a lot of things that just scream help. Instead of laughing at them, try to understand them. And yeah, I'm not talking about coddling them. I'm not talking about just giving in to their every whims. That's not what I'm talking about. But I am talking about empathy. There are nicer ways to approach the problems in our world. Instead of constantly bashing people and making fun of them. We think we can just snap people out of the problems that they're in, and that automatically they'll just get up and be fixed. But it's not like that. Issues are complicated. We need to realize we all have problems and stop picking at the younger generation. God bless. Peace out. I'll see you in the next video.